So we are on the northern tip of the South Island today, just south of Abel Tasman. We just booked it up the west coast because it's supposed to rain for like 10 days in a row, so we might have to backtrack and check that out later. But the weather is supposed to be pretty nice, and actually this morning it was pretty beautiful, and surprisingly we're getting a light drizzle right now and the sun's going away. But we are exploring the Riwaka Resurgance right now. Apparently it's part of a river that goes underground and then springs back up. So bunch of little quick day hikes and attractions in this area of the northern part of the South Island, south of Abel Tasman right now. So actually, Sam just started walking, and I don't know where she went. I just followed this little side trail down here to the river. I think she went further up, but I actually have no idea what like the deal is with this place. It was her idea to come here, so she just kind of took off without me. But this is pretty cool over here. Well, this looks like a pretty sweet little swimming hole over here. Oh yeah. Well, I thought she said that the river went underground at a certain point, but this looks like a nice little pool here, little waterfall. So this place has a very special sacred status to the Maori, the indigenous people, and it's because they believe that the waters of life spring from this area. Definitely, if you come out here, leave no trace, leave it the way you found it. I was thinking about jumping into that cave tunnel there to check it out a little bit, but I know in some areas of New Zealand, they don't even allow you to swim in it. So because it's marked as a sacred area, I'm not going to go swimming here, even though it may be allowed. I'm just not sure. So you can see the resurgence here where the river comes back up, covered by this old lava flow. This basalt volcanic rock lava flow covered the river in this area. Reminds me a lot of the Tamalich Blue Pool, Tamalich Falls in Oregon. Same scenario. The lava flow covered the river, so now it's basalt hardened rock. And it looks like this river's springing up from the ground, but it's actually flowing from somewhere higher up. Well, up next we're checking out the Rawhiti Cave, otherwise known as the Manson Cave on the map. Rawhiti means sunrise in Maori, and it's one of the largest cave entrances in New Zealand. It's like an hour walk up this dry creek bed here. We're just outside of Takaka, maybe about half an hour outside of Takaka, so we're gonna try and catch this cave. Looks like a beautiful little valley to explore here, and it's supposed to be a spectacular cave with giant stalactites and an interesting stalactite phenomenon that we're going to share with you. So it's definitely warmer up here than it was down south. One of these towns we pulled into on the west coast, I think it was Greymouth, pulled in, and I got real excited because there was palm trees. And I was like, okay, this place is definitely going to be warmer than Wanaka and Queenstown and Dunedin, waking up to those frosted windshields every morning. And so far I have not been disappointed. It's definitely warmer. Came across a strange bird. Not exactly sure because it was obstructed in the bushes a little bit, but it was making a crazy noise. Quite a different climate and ecosystem up here that allows for these palm trees to grow. Yeah, wow, much more tropical or subtropical here on the northern end of the South Island. spotted some wild goats. Wild goat sighting. Pretty eventful little hike out here to this cave. Holy cow. So made it to the cave here, and you can see these stalactite formations behind me. The interesting thing about these stalactites is that they are what's known as phytokarsts, because the calcium carbonate or calcite will form the stalactite dripping down. But because these are towards the opening of the cave, it gets exposed to sunlight, and so moss will grow on the side closest to the light, and the calcium carbonate will come down and build up a layer on that moss covered side, and so the stalactite kind of grows toward the sun because of the plant matter growing on the side of it. So deep inside of caves that don't see sunlight, you won't see this formation. Remember, stalactites hang tight from the ceiling, stalagmites rise mightily from the ground. Wow, Rawhiti Cave. This is like no other cave I've seen before, especially with these phytokarsts. And the opening is actually stunning with the palm trees and the tree ferns at the opening. Looking at the backlit shadows of those right now is amazing. Just a quick reminder, anytime you're in a cave, you don't want to touch the cave formations because they take a thousand years on average for just 1 millimeter of that calcite crystal to grow on the stalactites, stalagmites. But in this particular one, they have this this boardwalk, this walkway developed, and they ask that you stick to the developed trail here. So no real danger of touching anything. Just up towards the top there, you might be close enough to touch it, but you don't want to. Amazing. What a delicate ecosystem they have here, and I can see why this, again, is another sacred place to the Maori, the indigenous people here on New Zealand. And this cave, by the way, is 1 million years old, so think of all the history that it has seen. One last little tidbit about the phytokarsts is the different colored mosses and lichen that grow on it give it different colors. So not only will you see like a green moss, you'll also see like a maroon colored lichen or moss, and it just adds to the beauty of the cave. The largest freshwater springs in the southern hemisphere and some of the clearest water ever measured on planet Earth. This place is considered sacred by the Maori and actually the source of life here, the life-giving waters. And up until I think 2007 you were allowed to scuba dive here. However, now there's no contact allowed with the water at all because it is a sacred holy place for the Maori. And also they're trying to prevent the spread of an invasive algae here in New Zealand called didymo. And it has infected a lot of creeks because if you go from one stream to another, you can bring it with your footwear. And so that's why they advocate, one, not touching this. You're not allowed to touch this water at all. But also, if you are going in between creeks and rivers, to let your shoes dry out and clean them thoroughly so that you do not contaminate the streams and waterways here in New Zealand with this invasive algae, didymo. the life-giving waters here, but really all water is life-giving. Our bodies are 80% water. You can survive for a month, 40 days without food, but 3 or 4 days without water and you will die. And so that's why protecting our waters are so important to the health of the planet and in turn the health of ourselves. You know, air pollution, what happens with air pollution is it rains down all that stuff that we pollute into the air, rains it down into our waterways. And in fact, met a guy in Oregon, a Forest Service worker, who was telling us that they were having a real problem with mercury levels in the waterways of the forests of Oregon, mainly due to industrial contaminants, you know, venting these gases into the air, and they condense in a rain cloud, and that the rain rains down these industrial contaminants into the waterways of remote forests that are you know, hundreds, maybe even thousands of miles from these factories, and yet they are still getting polluted. So it's so critically important to protect our air, our water, because the health of the planet in turn affects the health of our bodies.
This is the biggest tree fern that we've seen by girth. It must be ancient.
Infamous.